Okay, so that is about building relationships, and here focusing, of course, on the project team. Now, in reality, this I should maybe pre-close. I've done some research in the UK looking at actor network theory. It's a wonderful theoretical concept. And one of the studies that I did, because the data became available, is we analyzed with 3 German students in how teams were actually recruited. And this is a very dark history in the former East German DDR, yeah, or wait a minute, what is it? Democratic GDR, I think would be the proper term. And the reason is the repository. Yeah, so there was a organization called State Security, yeah, and they were of course redundant when Germany remerged, and we were interested in how they recruited into their teams and what kind of relationships they built. And what was absolutely breathtaking was that they had a similar problem with how do you motivate people if they didn't want to be in your organization, or if they wanted to be in your organization, probably for alternative motives, so not to work on the project. Now, we have kind of looked into this. So why do I say all this? It's just to make you aware that this is kind of looking at team members that want to be in your team, or that are recruited in, so they're kind of on a transaction basis in your project. And there is already collaboration. Actually, the term missing here is as well cooperation and communication. Yeah, so we are looking at that really as a pure form from functionality for learning. Yeah, so there's certainly more literature in that area. And of course, as you know, building relationships can happen in many ways. Now, I picked here up front a little bit a concept to kind of visualize a little bit our project context. And that was really the idea, to understand that as a project manager, or when you come even into a project organization, you are always, even if you're just a team member, part of the negotiation. So you too are contributing what the culture is, how it manifests. So there may be things there, but there's always an opportunity for you to create more. By the way, this is not always wanted. Yeah. So, but we come to that afterwards to maybe discuss what work environments you have experienced and how feasible some of the solutions would be that we are discussing here. So, but just to go back here to this model, it's very simple. On the one axis, we have information. On the other level, the level of trust. And here, this is kind of plotted against contractual notions. Yeah, and notice here, smartmanship is kind of yeah, it's a fancy word for more agile organizations. Yeah, but here in this context, it was just functional, because it shows you that inter-organizational level, yeah, you may have some trust where you are well, so I guess the idea here is that in a strategic alliance, you are trying to do projects together. Your strategic goals are aligned in the long run, right? So and the notion here is you have 2 parties acting as one, and then smartmanship is kind of informed cooperation, 2 working seamlessly, then partnership, 2 acting as 2 with limitless disclosure and cooperation, but you kind of try to work. And this is just on the collaboration kind of lens, right? So in most projects, you won't necessarily have that. So to the other side, and that is where you see the zero-sum win-lose scenario, 1 against 1, if you're contracting in, or you recruit kind of very planned specialist experts to come in, they normally still have their reputation. Yeah? So they will do a good job with no doubt, yeah, and make sure that it works. but for the learning intent, this can be problematic, yeah, because we actually don't come to that trust level and information exchange level, more to a broker level, if at all, yeah. Okay, so that was a little bit explanation. I kind of pointed that out. Here is a kind of underlining theorem from Bruce Woodcock. So negotiation is always as well influencing. So being able to persuade others, negotiation to reach agreement. And I guess just to go once through it, that we can familiarize a little bit. So negotiating is as well listening to the needs of the other players, getting as well an agreement for acceptable to both sides. So win-win, establish trust, knowing when to compromise, making concessions for agreement, using open, encouraging body language, and then here we're going already in the dilemma of being just Zoom aligned, yeah. Handling objects to your arguments, identifying common ground. So this is a rationalized approach, right? Getting your points across in a calm but assertive manner, and emphasizing the positive aspects of your argument, backing up points with logic, using positive language, and persuading. So developing a line of reasoned argument and tactfully challenging the view expressed by others with which you disagree with. Yeah, so this is a relatively good model because it kind of goes in the rational space in the plea for learning. Learning is, of course, as well emotional. So there's a second layer here, of course, hidden, but kind of tailored in with pleading and rationalizing, right? So to kind of keep the argument on an emotional, logical level rather than just purely emotional. Yeah. Okay, so that is as background. Now, what is actually, how do we build relationships and communicate? So I just wanted to remind us here of a few definitions. And by the way, I've disregarded here a lot, like conflict and orders and things like that. I hope you will all arrive in an organization where you can, well, you probably have as well order rights, but there is, of course, one leadership theorem with subordinates, yeah, so they follow you, versus a team of followers, which is a different plateau game. And that is normally more what you have in a knowledge organization. Otherwise, you have, we are more in the specialist theorem and less learning. Yeah. So here the dialogue comes from Greek, dia as in through and logos as in speak. So that conversation understood as an exchange between two or more parties who are talking to and not to each other. When something must be done through speech, it's goal-oriented. Yeah, so the idea here, dialogue is an instrument. So its purpose is to reach a common picture and common understanding, meaning, and context, right? So that is where we should seek the dialogue. Then we have as well the communication, and this is kind of the umbrella term here. So comes from communis, or the common, so common ground, if you want, to understand knowledge or information, the common, yeah. Therefore constitutes communication not so much of what I say, but by what you hear. So the responsibility of correct understanding is a communicating part side. Communication is an active process between two or more willing participants. And here my superstar in this area was, of course, Greenspan, who sat in front, I think, of the National Tribune. I don't know if you know that what you said. I don't know if you understand that what you heard is not what I said. Yeah? And that was his response to somebody kind of paraphrasing what Greenspan had said. Yeah? And he kind of dismissed it on the basis, recognizing that they had no communication. But yeah, anyway, a beautiful chestnut. And that is tricky to realize if you have really understood what the other one is saying. So you have to kind of have this trailing of making sure that you actually understand what the other is trying to convey to you, right? Okay, then there's another one. Well, there are many more, but with the conversation, I wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit. So the good conversation has a purpose, yeah, that extends beyond the conversation itself. So here in a conversation, you try to strive towards a common image or picture, very similar to the dialogue. But then, therefore, we need different asymmetrical perspectives. So because there is a intent as well to kind of bridge beyond maybe hierarchy, or that's my next one. So to bridge the asymmetrical perspectives, so which may be there, the individual differences through age, gender, culture, education, status, experience, language, sensor experience. Yeah, so you can do the experiment with a friend. Ask both, brief yourself. You walk around, actually, yeah, stay within your 10-kilometer limit in Victoria or Melbourne. Yeah, but within that, do the walk if you have a neighbor or friend, and ask them to consciously look by walking once around a block what they observed, and you will see it's nearly impossible to really have the same list of items unless they're very exceptional and you're kind of emphasizing with each other what you saw. It's worse if you're doing this with academics, because we seem to be even more framed to look at specific stuff rather than at the more general or common stuff. So there may be as well clues to how knowledge works. So in order to take care of the respective asymmetry, participants must be equal in communication. Otherwise, it's not it's not a conversation, and you don't convey. All right. So so very cryptic, all this. So what does that actually mean? So, oh yeah, sorry, this is my communication flight of stairs. So this has been as well theorized. Oh, I've forgotten the reference here. Can't remember who that was, but this is a famous communication theorem, and maybe you recognize it. So it's kind of a comfort level of how we engage maybe into communication. By the way, this is heavily linked to culture, what here the cliche step is. So I think the wind and weather, that came actually from the UK originally, although we kind of do this here as well in Victoria, right? So cliche step is normally you don't jump into direct matter, you try to converse on a very general level, like how are you doing? Oh, the weather is terrible today, heavy hail or something like that. Yeah, so that would be kind of here you're not it's nearly like a deflection of meeting. It's just recognizing that somebody is there. And in teams, we often have, of course, the intent of the professional step, so maybe practical stuff. Yeah, and again, be aware there is as well personality and, of course, previous culture exposure. That means that people are more happy to kind of go across those steps or happy to jump steps. Yeah. So that is certainly what we often get in the team, and as well, no matter what project organization we have, subcontracted or you know, whatever contractual matters, organization matters, and what people's role is. This is normally a comfortable level. And then the indirect step. So here, this is not formalized anymore. Here you are starting to have maybe, although it says indirect step, it's actually where you can ask indirect questions. And I guess the ultimate level, and I think this is where it links back to Lynn's observation, we have the you and I, where you really meet and you are authentically trying to communicate to understand or explore something, or find out how somebody feels about this and what that actually means. So that is an important step. Now,
sorry, Robert, what was the indirect step again? So
okay. Yeah, so here you may have, so what could be the indirect step? What do you think? So
after
we have kind of generalities, right? Professional, and what could that be?
I don't know.
So here, indirect step could be something semi-personal but obvious. Yeah. So you have, okay, I give a terrible example. Yeah. So I have actually orange trousers, and whenever I wear those in Monash, I know in the meeting somebody will comment on this. Yeah. So this is not professional stuff anymore. This is not cliche stuff. You know, this is kind of indirect, but it's not really, you know, they're not asking me like, ooh, what fashions are you following? Are you the haute couture of bright colors? No, this is normally not where this leads. Yeah. But it's more like, oh, this is very bright. What's going on here? So it's kind of,
breaking the
a little bit personal. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
No, pleasure. Yeah, super question. Okay, so those are kind of the communication flights, yeah, and you notice here that it has a lot to do as well with personal preference, right? And we had that already in culture. By the way, I've kind of, I have a slide deck of culture as well in there. So if you want to revise this, there's certainly a lot to it, and I've kind of linked this a little bit to the basic cultural theorems. But here I wanted to actually, here I wanted to link this to the organization. So to keep it a little bit more general. So we have actually organizational setups that kind of, well, based by structure, you are basically in that game. And I think this is a little bit where I wanted to kind of highlight this. So when it comes to the coordination type, yeah, there's mark. Oh, what do you think marked means? Okay, so this is just my bad naming. So I think this is from a Swedish book, if I remember correctly. Oh, the reference is missing. This is really not good. But okay, so marked was basically just subject specialists. Yeah? So you have here basically a group of experts, yeah, that are coming in to convey their expertise, information, and then communication is one way. Decisions are maybe decentralized by the individual, or you kind of provide information, you know, to say like, okay, from this expertise, this is the best answer. Yeah, and then once you have plotted all out, yeah, you kind of make the decision. Decisions are based on individual knowledge, yeah, so yeah, expert, and then ability to live within new information. Well, so this is problematic, yeah, because they're subject expert. So arguably that they're coming in with the new information. So if you're changing something, you potentially have the wrong expert. Yeah. So, okay, shall I bore you again? Okay. So in construction, we have a process, yeah, where you have a designer, and then you have a design, and then you send the engineers away to kind of engineer this. But of course, there's a shortcut. You have a product catalog. You open it and you say, hey, I want those beautiful apartments in a tower block 26 stories high. This means design, structure, engineering is all predetermined. You can just order it off the shelf. So this means the organization has changed. So this means you don't need a structure engineer anymore, because the actual product has already embedded that knowledge. Yeah, yeah, it's a problem. Yeah? If you've already bought in the experts, it's an expensive mistake. Yeah. But yeah, anyway. So then, yeah, so much information is inappropriate. Many stakeholders, yeah, with experts, they can normally cater for this. It's appropriate. conflicts is as well inappropriate. Yeah, so there's this rule of the expert, and you may have actually the COVID is a wonderful mirror board for this. Yeah? So you suddenly notice that intuitions. Yeah, I remember this. The first comment, I think, when the COVID or it wasn't even COVID, right? It was SARS, I think, came. There was a comment from the media. Oh, it's like a flu, like a cold. And then people, and we got very allergic to that comparison. But virus-wise, there is a truth in this, but that had misleading implications, and hence was abandoned as information piece. So, but yeah, anyway. So yeah, I've talked here already too much against this, but so just notice in the hierarchy, right, we have a different one. So this is kind of a decision maker, and then two-way by management knowledge is a basis, yeah. And here we had already the dilemma, yeah. So who was that again? I think Jody or Jeff said that, right? So they kind of pointed out in the other dilemma, this is exactly where it went wrong. So we had management knowledge that kind of made the final decision, but then compromised on the specialist or expert knowledge, which was the determining factor for the failure. Yeah, but yeah. So here again, if you have a look, new information is inappropriate. Too much information is inappropriate. Many stakeholders is partly okay. Conflicts, yeah. So how do you solve this? You kind of stressing that this is important and this is a two-way element. Oh, I'm jumping. So then in teaming, you have of course a multiple way, yeah, arguably, yeah, and decisions are taken common in a team. Decisions are based on team knowledge, right? And then new information is appropriate. So because here, if it's really embraced that way, it's a learning organization, right? So new information means new insights, means you can rethink where you're at, right? And then much information is as well okay. Many stakeholders, that gets difficult, yeah, because they may not understand the journey, the learning journey, and they have to then reinvent elements if they're coming in late or different points. And as well, conflicts at that level where you're still making sense is actually an issue. Yeah, so if that is not a rational discourse, just dispositions, then this can be quite problematic. And the last one, this is often what we have if you don't organize. People come based on habit or kind of cultural background. Habit is the stage below, yeah. So habit is kind of what you would naturally do without thinking much about it, and this is exactly the problem. So then communication is normally not happening. Decisions are taken decentralized by each person, yeah. So they kind of pick up, oh, here's something missing, I need to do this, yeah, without communicating, and then yeah, decisions are kind of normally based on common knowledge, if at all. Yeah, so you have as well a group momentum. At certain group size, people actually don't interact necessarily anymore. So that is actually a huge problem if it's not coordinated. And then ability with new information, it's problematic. Yeah, so habits is potentially difficult with new information. Too much information is normally not a problem. So habits kind of carry you even through extremely complex scenarios if you have a habit. Many stakeholders is well not a problem because you kind of intuitionally react, and conflict is well appropriate. Habit can deal with this quite easily. Yeah, so it's clear preferences is always the way we have done it. Yeah, so that is where in the sphere of robustness. And that makes as well change so difficult because habits are always kind of an underbuild on all these elements. Yeah. Okay. So to maybe explain this a little bit. So depending on your organization, if you have a self-cutting team member or employee, and here in a subordinate leadership theory, yeah, so where you are project manager and you have kind of the people that are contract or that basically carry out your elements, then you can himself have comprehension, must himself have manageability, so must correspond, and will himself have meaningfulness. Yeah, so that has great need for information and knowledge. So here you can actually inform, and that is actually quite good. So the co-skilled or self-managed employees, subordinates, needs to have common language, common goals, and common understanding, and must be good at communicating. So what's the difference here? Okay, if we go back, where are we here with those two models? Oh, sorry. So here, self-cutting employee, is this team or hierarchy or market? Marked.
Mark, I think.
Yeah. Why? Oh, I have another comment. Oh yeah, marked chorus as well. Yeah, why marked?
Because the first one there, it's working individually, right? Whereas the other one is working as a group.
Yeah, so this is delegated. Yeah, so I would have been actually happy with either. So hierarchy, yeah, because here you must be manageable. Yeah, and but I see how you arrive here as well and marked. Yeah, this could be against the contract. Yeah, so you must then as well be manageable with your expertise. Yeah, so I understand why you both picked that. And then it's still coming down here to individual knowledge, right? Well, actually, so to go back, this is actually the different dimension. But here, can himself comprehension means they just have to understand, and meaningfulness, this is kind of, they make sense of it, what they're being told. Yeah, whilst when you have kind of co-skilled or autonomous teams, then you have to arrive with your specialism at a common language. So you have to be able to converse even your specialist expertise to your other team members. And you have to be able to relate to the goal of the project and be able to communicate as well how you can contribute to that, and have a similar understanding what the overall goal is. Yeah, so which means they have to be really good at communicating. And here in this one, right, they really need the information and knowledge. They don't have it yet. So so they need the guidance or training and so forth. Yeah.
So is it answer marketed, or do we give the correct answer? Is it marketed for the first one,
So,
the self-cutting employee?
So here, so this, yeah. So the quick answer is it could be marked or hierarchy.
Hierarchy.
But it marked this is very unlikely. So at that level where they need information and knowledge, you would probably not employ them as experts. But we have said sometimes, you know, you invite somebody from a completely different discipline or expertise, and they go into a high knowledge area or very technical area. And then, you know, you still need to kind of manage and convey where the entry points is, because they may not recognize the overall organization. So then there's, so for example, the design thinking is an example, right? At what point do you do design thinking in a space shuttle? Yeah. So actually, I wouldn't dare to hazard to guess here, but you know, I see probably where it can fit. But if you want to facilitate it on a new spacecraft or something like that, I can imagine that somebody with a general knowledge would struggle. But otherwise, this sits more at a managerial approach. So division of labor is the traditional term, yeah, where you have management doing the thinking and planning, and then the team is associated with doing the work based on the information and training and knowledge that they get. Yeah, and then you need to have the right mechanisms as well there to run it, and the leadership style and the management behind it. Yeah. Whilst when you are in a co-skilled or you are in an interdisciplinary team, then this is actually the key elements. You need to come to common language, work on common goals, common understanding, and kind of nurture and facilitate that good communication is actually happening. Yeah. Okay, this was a very long kind of intro, and the reason is actually quite pragmatic. I want you to think in, oh, maybe you have to do this in your team because I've set the breakout rooms up that way. I want you to consider in your team maybe two toxic relationships. Don't go too private, yeah. But so maybe just of a past project or something you did recently where you kind of worked. By the way, the clue is here as well, not to take your conversation partner as an example. Yeah. Think about the specific conversation, about the difference of opinion or problem, and how would you characterize the communication and collaboration behaviors? Yeah, and then in the second step, we want to consider a little bit strategy for how your next conflict can be handled more effectively. So, or in other words, what would you do with this hindsight now, different looking as well at our examples? Yeah. Okay. Questions at this point?
Yeah. How would you define a toxic relationship?
Yeah, because here at this point, probably just where something. Okay, I can give you an example. So as a naive academic, I always think that when we work or meet or collaborate, that everybody is curious to find out and do something. But of course, people can come as well into a relationship, and this is very hypothetical. So I was thinking of more concrete ones, but in that case, come in with political intent, yeah, to just keep a status quo and not open to the innovation or what the meeting may try to achieve, and then they may just block, and I kind of engaged with them in a beautiful, rational way, and I said like, no, this is a good idea. Look at the kind of recent findings, and then the person responded, and I kind of responded to them again with a logical manner, and then later on, a colleague pointed out to me that they're actually just lobbyists, so they try to block that, and that is something that in that meeting I didn't consider. But yeah, okay, this was a bad example. So I want better examples from you, so you can maybe think of a personal example. Yeah. So I don't mean toxic as in I hated them. Yeah. So the small actually maybe this is something that came emotionally up, but this was more thinking of conversation. Kind of thinking of knowledge sharing and learning. Yeah, where that may be inhibited. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about an example, but I haven't got anything in mind yet.
Okay. No. I put you in your groups. Have a discussion maybe around this. But by the way, you can take as well juicy examples. Yeah. So, yeah, I think of some myself. Yeah, that I have as well. One good one. Yeah, maybe have a brief discussion. So we take kind of 10 minutes for this. Yeah, and I put you in the breakout room. Yeah. Okay, stop sharing and